You might be wondering why I have a mask on right now. Obviously, this is not the first video that I've put a mask on for the beginning of it. This is just a steampunk-esque style mask that I found the other day while I was out grocery shopping, and I liked it. And it kind of works for it's Halloween is coming up and everything, and by the time this video comes around, it should be in October. Um, but so I found a nice mask. It's actually fairly well, it's okay. Um, but I also wanted to just wear this because this video, obviously, if you've seen what it's about, is going to be about Daigo Nishijima and Maki Himekawa, who are two former DigiDestined, two adults that were DigiDestined when they were kids, and they were some of the first DigiDestined. Now, I will do a separate video where I go a little bit more into kind of the lore that we learn about some of the first DigiDestined later on, but I'll talk about some of it in this video because it does pertain to Daigo and Maki. And they are two adults now who work for an organization or work for the government in Japan, or a section of the government in Japan, that kind of it's their job to monitor the digital world. They also work with Mako's father, who he studies the digital world and some things along those lines. Obviously, down the line, we'll have it that like Izzy and Joe's brother Jim and like Sora's father, later on down the line, they're going to be studying the digital world a lot more as well. And Izzy already is studying the digital world quite a bit. For this video, the mask is because throughout a good portion of the Digimon Tri series, where we're interacting with mainly with Maki and mostly with Maki herself, but Daigo as well, they're wearing masks to a degree because Daigo is undercover as like their calligraphy teacher at the high school where Tai and Izzy and Sora and Mimi and Matt and well, not Joe, but where they go. And he's undercover there as their calligraphy teacher and kind of like guidance counselor, whereas Maki very much is in her role as this government agent, and she is revealed to be kind of one of the things that is behind what's going wrong with Meikumon and with the digital world in and of itself with this virus. She's revealed to be not necessarily the exact person that caused it, but she wants it to happen, and I'll be going over that when I get through part of the video. But the mask is coming off. I actually just got back from walking the dog and it's hot outside, so cooling down. So to start off with, a little bit more about Daigo and Maki. When they were children, they were in the digital world and they each had a digital partner. Daigo's partner was a Digimon called Bearmon, that its full form was Loader Leomon, and Maki's Digimon was a Tapirmon, whose final form was a Makidramon. As I've stated before, some Digimon throughout the course that we've seen them, unfortunately, we've only seen them as like villains. Tapirmon has been a little bit of an kind of back and forth Digimon depending on what's going on. And Makidramon, again, they've kind of been not necessarily always the friends of the DigiDestined, but in this case, they were the Digimon of two DigiDestined. Daigo, Maki, and three other children had been in the digital world when they were children, and like they traveled around and had their own adventures and everything, probably pretty similar to what Tai had, to what Tai and his group had gone through. And what happened was, at one point when they were children, they were attacked by the Dark Masters, and this huge climactic battle against the three, well, it's the four Dark Masters, because there was Piedmon and Puppetmon and Mashidramon and Metal Seedramon. It was all of them against these group of five DigiDestined and their Digimon. And what happened was, during the battle, homeostasis, which is this presence in the digital world that it's supposed to try to help keep balance in the digital world, it possessed Maki and then used her to force the other children's Digimon to all digivolve even further. And Loader Leomon, Daigo's Digimon, digivolved into Biohumon, who is this giant white tiger, and Maki forces their Digimon to digivolve. And four of the five, four of them turn into what would then become what is referred to as the harmonious ones, or the Digimon Sovereign. And Daigo's Lord Leomon digivolved all the way up into Biohumon, who is the white tiger in this regard. I will do a separate video where I talk about the harmonious ones, or the celestial Digimon, whichever one you would refer to them as. Different versions of the digital world have like different hierarchy among the Digimon, and in this case, it is this version of the digital world has these four Digimon, and they're representations of like the four cardinal directions, and they'll get a little bit more of a video, as I said. But unfortunately, what happens is Megidramon, Maki's Digimon, does not digivolve further. The other Digimon, once they're fully evolved up into the harmonious ones, then force their power into Megidramon, and basically he is sacrificed in order to channel this immense energy attack directly against the Dark Masters and destroys them. Maki watches this happen, of course, kind of the way that Kari gets possessed. She sometimes remembers what happens, sometimes she doesn't. It just depends on what's going on. In this case, she does appear to wake up just before what they see happen from being possessed, and she watches as her Digimon is sacrificed and destroyed. And unfortunately, it's stated that the way that Digimon died, the way that Megidramon, Tapirmon was sacrificed, he can't be brought back. And even though Maki tried, she had demanded of homeostasis heartbrokenly to demand why was he the one that was sacrificed? Why was it her partner that had to be sacrificed? And why couldn't it have been done in a way that could allow him to be brought back? I've gone over a previous Digimon video where I talked about Mako, of course, and my whole tear-filled ending of that one. We, of course, talk about how the fact of, part of what, what shows with Mako is that, you do, as your Digimon, your Digimon don't always come back to you because things you lose don't always come back to you. Maki and Daigo were both still children when this happened. And for Maki, it very much affected her quite a bit. And later on, they still grow up, they're still kind of best friends. And Daigo obviously loves Maki. We see this throughout the entire section of the series. He adores her and he loves her. And I think it's even stated that they date at some point when they're in high school and in college, and they stay friends. And what ends up happening is Maki spends so much time just trying to find a way to get Tapirmon back. And she keeps trying to do this. She researches more and more about the digital world, and Daigo tries to, is worried about her and tries to dissuade her from doing this because he, of course, wants her to heal and find a new partner, quote unquote, become his, girlfriend, wife, whatever the case may be, instead of just being obsessed with trying to get her Digimon back. Now, in regards to the way that she acts with this, I do not necessarily blame her for wanting to get her Digimon back. If in the real world here, there was a way for it was reassured that your pet or your loved one or your friend or whoever it was that died, that they would be reincarnated and that you would be able to find them again. Primary village being the main thing with this one. In the digital world, that, a Digimon dies, they get reborn in the primary village, regardless of whether or not they were good or bad. Usually it's a hope that by the time they get reincarnated, they're kind of purified, quote unquote, and their data is then given a second chance. And sometimes they do retain the memories of their previous life. We saw this with Wormmon, we saw this with Patamon, we saw this with a few other Digimon as well, when they, regain their memories, or as they, grow, or when they first hatch, they still remember who they were in their previous life. And in some cases, they do get the chance to do it all over again, but obviously with the Dark Masters, we see that the Dark Masters had existed once in the past, and then they were destroyed by the harmonious ones, and those four Celestial Digimon are still around because one of those Digimon does turn into a Zulongmon, and a Zulongmon, of course, interacts with Davis and his group during the time frame in the second season when they're dealing with the Destiny Stones. And again, I will do a different video where I talk about the harmonious ones with the Celestial Digimon. They're also a much bigger part of the storyline in Season 3. in season 3 in Tamers. They're a much bigger part of the thing. My mom is mowing in the backyard mowing right now, so I apologize if you hear it. Or there's someone outside mowing right now, and I apologize if you can hear that on the mic. But it shouldn't be too loud. But what we see is, Daigo and Maki both make their way into being, government servants, being, working for the National Data Processing Bureau is what it's referred to as. And Maki is ranked higher, and Daigo is a little bit more designed to, he can go in undercover. The point I was trying to make a moment ago about like that if there was a way for you to find like your same pet again, your same family member again, I'm sure a lot of us would try to do that. There are the movies, A Dog's Purpose and A Dog's Purpose Part 2, where it's, this dog that keeps getting reincarnated and keeps finding its owner again and keeps finding that his owner's daughter and granddaughter. I have not seen them. They look like movies that would just make me bawl the entire time, and I don't need that. I need fewer of those movies in my life. But what ends up happening is, of course, if you had the ability to, I've had both of my grandmothers die and one of my grandfathers die. And, if there was a way for me to go and find the person that they were like reincarnated as, and maybe not have that person necessarily remember who I was, but have a relationship with them, a friend relationship or something, that would be one thing. But then there's, the more equivalency of this is like, oh, you have like a best friend that you had when you were a kid and like that one died, and then you try to find like the person that they were reincarnated as for so many different religions that have reincarnation as a possibility in it, those mostly being of course Buddhist and Hindu. There's several others of course that do deal with reincarnation in some form or another, and of course because Digimon is of course made in Japan, there are those elements of reincarnation within it, and that's where like the Digimon coming and being reborn in. But I'm getting off track, and I'm going back to Maki and Daigo. And again, it's to a degree, I don't blame Maki for wanting to try to find Tapirmon again and trying to find her partner again, because, we saw what happened to Meiko when, Meikumon died. And that was after having an even longer bond and a longer time being with her. With Maki and Daigo, we don't know exactly how long they were around their Digimon, but they still obviously love them. And the other DigiDestined that had been there obviously loved their Digimon as well. We never get an identification, I don't think, of who the other 3 children are. But they get, Daigo and Maki grow up, they join, they go through college, they join the, National Data Processing Bureau, and they actually end up working alongside Meiko's father. And like they're aware of Meikumon, and they're aware of the DigiDestined, of course. And Maki keeps emailing with Dark Genai, who claims that if they reboot the digital world, they're using, Meikumon and this virus, that they would be able to bring Tapirmon back. And Maki agrees to collaborate with King Drasil, who is this supposed king of the digital world. Now, I've seen about 5 whole series of Digimon, because I've seen both series of Digimon Adventures, I've seen Tamers, I've seen Frontier, and I've seen Digimon Data Squad, or Digimon Sabers, depending on which way you want to put it. And in Digimon Sabers, they do deal with a character that is called King Drasil. King Drasil, whichever one you want to go for. And he is a villainous type character in that. I'll probably talk more about that at some point down the line. I don't know when. That might be like when I get to Digimon Sabers, or I might save that for a different video. We'll see. But for all intents and purposes, King Drasil lies, and he just wants to reboot the digital world so that way he can then control what all the Digimon do. So he is bad, and Genai is currently being controlled by him in this case, because this is a dark version of Genai. Genai will get his own video. But Maki agrees. And then what ends up happening is Daigo then goes undercover as the calligraphy teacher / kind of, guidance counselor type teacher at the Tsukishima General High School, where Tai and the rest of the bunch of the older kids go. and he's, monitoring this, this group of DigiDestined and everything, and, keeping an eye on them, and, he's trying to, point Tai down a good path and everything. And he actually does take his job rather seriously as the calligraphy teacher and as the guidance counselor. He very much wants Tai and the other DigiDestined to succeed. Daigo also very much likes to eat donuts, because like every time that you see him, he almost always has like a donut with him, which is just hilarious. It's like, I have a donut. I have a donut. Would you like more donuts? More donuts. More donuts. Ooh, look, more food. So it's like he just likes to eat, apparently. But what we see happen for Daigo is we see him and Tai have this conversation at the beginning of the first episode, at the beginning of the series for Digimon Adventure Tri, and he's talking to Tai, and he's like, okay, well, what is it that you want to do? Like, what would you like to do? Like, what are your goals and everything? And at this point in time in the story, Tai has had to say goodbye to Agumon. Like, they've had to go back to the digital world. This is before Agumon and Gabumon like vanish. This is like the Digimon had to go back to the digital world at some point. Now Tai's just kind of, sad and wanting to see Agumon again. And he's like, well, I have a friend that, lives really far away, and it's really hard to see him and everything. And Daigo's like, oh, so, well, maybe you want to learn how to, go study abroad, or learn about, other countries, or go and visit them that way. So maybe that's like a goal. So he's trying to, help Tai figure out that type of a plan, or figure out, like, he cares about Tai's future. He does. He cares about the DigiDestined. To a degree, I would say Maki does too, but he seems to be the one that cares about them a little bit more. And what ends up happening is, later on in that day, Tai ends up getting chased around by Kawagamon, and, Agumon shows back up again, and then, like, Daigo pulls up in his car, and he's like, get in the car, and, he's, like, dressed in nice suit and everything, and Tai's like, what the frick just happened? And, like, him and Daigo are driving to the airport, and, all these other agents have been gathering up the rest of the DigiDestined, the rest of their group, except for Joe, who's currently off moping. And they get them to the airport, and Maki goes and she gets Mimi and takes Mimi to the airport. And they all meet up there, and then they all take care of the Kawagamon that's there. And then they introduce themselves as members of the National Data Processing Bureau. And they explain that their work was trying to deal with these portals that keep appearing between the real world and the digital world, this distortions that keep occurring. And they want to help the DigiDestined. And that, that's good. They do want to help the DigiDestined because, like, to a degree, the government of Japan and the governments of the world at this point know that Digimon are real with everything that they've seen happen. They can't deny that Digimon are real. There's just, unfortunately, this whole concept of, like, okay, well, every time the Digimon shows up, things go bad. People get hurt. Things get destroyed. Lots of bad things happen. And, yeah, okay, you sent this thing away, but your Digimon is also part of the problem for what just happened. And that if there are good Digimon, there have to be bad Digimon. And, Daigo and the data process, Daigo, Maki, and the data processing bureau do seem to think that, yeah, Digimon can be good. Like, they understand that, like, Tai and his group, their Digimon are good and helpful and just want to help things, go, smoothly and everything. And I'm going to go over this title that we have for Daigo, and it's the National Data Processing Bureau, Information and Communications Strategy Section, Information Management Office, Management Officer Level 2, Daigo Nishijima. Long-ass title. Long-ass title. And yeah, I also have here in my notes, he's also the undercover calligraphy teacher at the general high school and everything where Tai goes. He also loves donuts and seems to care about the kids very much. I literally put that in my notes. And like he has there's a running gag that he has where it's like every time he shows like he shows Tai and Matt his card at one point, like later on he shows someone else the card, and they just like National Data Processing Bureau, like just like reading through the card, and it's just funny. It's like, what does that mean anyway? Is basically their question of like, so that means what exactly? And it's just like, he's like, we monitor the digital world and everything, and we want to help you guys. And what ends up happening is they then, they help keep an eye on the Digimon and DigiDestined, and they then end up, they end up taking the DigiDestined to this, this nice, to the spa and everything, to the Osen, and they kind of hang around with them, and it's revealed that Mako knows Maki and Daigo and such. And so we're getting this interaction between them and the kids and everything. Of course, Daigo is still undercover as the calligraphy teacher, of course. And throughout, unfortunately, various things happen, and they have to deal with Ogremon and Leomon. And then during the time frame when they're having the cultural festival, Maki, whose intention is to try to get she wants to try to spread the virus amongst the Digimon to force this reboot. And to do that, she ends up, she's the one that sends Izzy the picture of Mimi in like this cheerleading outfit when they're doing the Daters Cafe. And that just gets Izzy, of course, to come. And then that results in Leomon bringing Meikumon and the rest of the Digimon all to the school. And this causes more problems. And then this is where we have the fake version of Ken, is Dark Jedi in disguise, as Ken kidnaps Mako, or kidnaps Meikumon, excuse me. And Maki actually kind of seemed to be aware that something was going to happen because she purposely left Meikumon alone. And I don't think Maki intended to watch as like everything happened with like the data, the virus spreading to all of the Digimon that the DigiDestined has. But she does watch. And then unfortunately, one of the things that happens is, later on, after like, the Digimon have started to realize that they're infected and that it's spreading, and that they're trying to, they want to spend time with their DigiDestined and everything. But one of the things that happens is Kari, ends up getting possessed by homeostasis, and she tells the DigiDestined, or tells the Digimon, that there is going to be a reboot of the digital world. And what ends up happening is Maki overhears this, and she wants there to be a reboot of the digital world, because then that gives her a chance to have Tapirmon back. Because then, like, he wasn't turned into a celestial, or he wasn't sacrificed by the celestial Digimon, because it reverts everything to zero in the digital world. And what ends up happening is Maki watches as possessed Kari talks to the Digimon and explains there is going to be a reboot. And Matt had kept confronting Maki and Daigo for different information, information that they were keeping from them, and more information about like the digital world, or more information like where Davis and his group were, because like they had said, oh, they went to go and do something, or we're monitoring them and we're tracking these other DigiDestined around the world, but Daigo also informs it that there are missing DigiDestined. But Daigo also gets very angry at Maki when he finds out that she was also keeping secrets from him in regards to things that was going on with the other DigiDestined that they were missing. So we get a lot of we're starting to get some cracks in their relationship there a little bit more. And Maki watched as Kari, possessed Kari, talked via homeostasis, talked to the Digimon and explained to them that there would be a reboot. And then Kari faints, and then Maki takes Kari to the hospital, and then she basically just like lies to Kari, and she's like, oh no, you were passed out in the hallway, so I took you to the hospital and everything. Told her nothing about the fact that she'd been possessed, told her nothing about the fact that, she had gone and told the Digimon that there was going to be a reboot and everything. And during this time frame, all the Digimon are trying to spend time with their DigiDestined and everything, because it's like, we want them to have some more good memories before everything that happens with the virus and everything. And Maki and Daigo do watch as, the DigiDestined are forced to watch as the reboot happens, and as, their Digimon disappear. And it does, Daigo doesn't like it. He's so upset that he cannot help with, with what happened. And the group then tell Daigo and Maki that it's just like, okay, no, we're going to go to the digital world. And Maki gives them a Digivice and a D3 that allows them to then be able to have access to the digital world a little bit more than they could beforehand. Helps with like force opening a portal to get them to the digital world. And they do go into the digital world and are able to, they start, the DigiDestined, of course, are trying to find their Digimon and everything. And in the process, Maki goes into the digital world as well. Daigo is still in the real world, but Maki goes into the digital world. And she goes and she talks to Dark Jedi. And he's like, you got your wish. Digital world's been rebooted. And she goes like, fine, then I'm going to go and try to find my partner. And she goes off to try to find Tapirmon. And what ends up happening, because he's supposed to be, recomposed as a Digi-Egg, and then he can hatch, and then Maki can go and try to find him. Daigo, during this time frame, has managed to hack into Maki's computer because she's kind of gone missing in the real world, and he finds out that she was communicating with Dark Jedi, and that she was in on what was going to be going on with the reboot, and that she'd been lying to him for so long. And that she knew about, Meikumon being, having this virus and spreading it and everything. And Maki also ends up, Maki does find, unfortunately, she does find Tapirmon, but Tapirmon does not recognize her at all. He doesn't remember her, and, she's like, no, you have to remember me, and she, tries hugging him, and it is actually very heartbreaking to watch, because it is that concept of, you do find, the rest of the DigiDestined kind of just went through this with their Digimon, but, they haven't been apart for so long, they haven't been, away from their Digimon for so long. There's still that pain there and everything that their Digimon don't remember you, and that still hurts. But with Maki, she's been working for so many years trying to get to the point where she can see Tapirmon again. And so that way she can then, see her partner again, her friend again. And unfortunately for her, it did kind of fail. Yes, he's back, but he does not remember her. And we have no way of knowing if there would have been a way for him to later on remember. And way that I'm going to finish up with what happens with Maki first, and then I'll go back to Daigo. But this basically makes Maki go insane because her own partner doesn't recognize her, and she doesn't, he doesn't believe her that they used to be partners. There's no bond that's there. There's no connection that we see the other kids have with their Digimon. And what ends up happening is this basically makes Maki go insane, and she tries ordering him to remember her, and it still doesn't work. And later Maki ends up finding her way into the Dark Ocean, which I've mentioned with Ken and I've mentioned with Kari, that this is an ocean, an area of the digital world that feeds on your despair and feeds on your pain and feeds on the darkness inside of you and tries to increase that and tries to make things worse for you, tries to make you delve into that darkness, tries to make you fall prey to the darkness even more because that makes it stronger. And she ends up in the Dark Ocean, and she's attacking these different Scubamon. And she has a bazooka for some reason. Where she got the bazooka, I do not know. But she has a bazooka. And she's just like, if Tapirmon doesn't remember me, then I just might as well just go out. Just might leave. Just might as well be gone. Because he was what I did all of this for. And I caused all of that pain for the DigiDestined. And for all of this. And it didn't even get me what I needed. It didn't get me what I wanted. It didn't get me my Tapirmon back. Where she could have just gone about it like what the other DigiDestined did. Where they just started to make new bonds with their Digimon. And then it did pay off in the end. If she had just started trying to just become Tapirmon's friend. It probably would have ended better. But unfortunately, that's not what happens with Maki, and as far as we're aware, she does die. Yeah, that doesn't go well for her. But we do go back to Daigo, and during the time frame that Maki is in the digital world and dealing with all of that, Daigo, of course, managed to hack into Maki's files and find out all of this secret information, and that she knew a whole bunch of this stuff, and that she had been working alongside Dark Jedi and Kindrazo, as I said. And when the DigiDestined land back in the real world, he finds them. He goes to like this police station or whatever where they are, and it's a running gag with the card again. He gives it to the guy at the police station. He's like reading off the entire thing. It's like, and that means what again? But like he helps Ty and the others get out of the police station, and then he takes them back to the school because it's summer, and they're able to stay in the school. And he like brings them some food and supplies and everything. And he is talking with the kids and everything and giving them updates on what's been going on in the real world. He watches as everything happens with Mekumon and with other fights, with watching as Mekumon just goes further and further down the crazy hole because of the virus and going on her rampage and everything, unfortunately. Daigo is also ends up interacting with a Digimon. I cannot remember the name of the Digimon, but it's like it's a Digimon that final form is, I think its final form is Jesmon, who is actually kind of like somewhat of an ally, but like it explains what's going to be going on with the reboot and that they're going to try the reboot again, but that would put humanity back at 0, basically. And he watches as a bunch of this stuff happens. He watches as there's this huge battle between, Omnimon and Regulamon and Alphamon and Jesmon, and him and Ty end up getting knocked into the ravine. They end up, falling underground and everything. And this is, of course, when everybody thinks that they're both dead. And, they're not dead. They survive the fall, but Nishijima, unfortunately, is a lot worse for wear. He's very, very, very badly damaged, very hurt and everything. And him and Ty end up finding their way into this underground laboratory where we see Davis, Yoli, Cody, and Ken, and the real Geni inside of these different pods, where they are being kind of preserved. They're like cryostasis pods. And they're in there on life support and everything to keep them alive. And what ends up happening is Daigo, Dark Geni shows up and he explains that, oh, well, there's one pod left, so one of you can go. And, the rest of you can go back to the real world. But probably one of you is going to have to stay here and die because or you can send them off, or they're going to stay here and die because I'm going to shut off the life support in the pods. And he does. And Daigo basically tricks Ty into going into one of the pods so that way he can then trap Ty in the pod and then send them all back to the real world. And he turned off, Dark Geni had turned off life support to both the pods and to the inside of the lab, so Daigo will run out of air eventually. And he does, he's like, I'm pretty sure in Daigo's case, he's like, I'm already bleeding to death, and Ty needs to go back, and these other DigiDestined need to go back, because I've already served my purpose. I already have done what I can, and I can't really do anything else. But I can try to make up for some of the things that happened with Maki for what Maki did. So he sends Ty off in the pod. Tide pods. Ty in a pod. No. Don't eat Tide pods. Do not eat Tide pods. Don't do that. That's stupid. But he sends Ty off in the pods, and Ty doesn't agree with this, but he sends him off because he tricked him in there. And he gives Ty final advice of keep striving forward, keep moving forward, and he sends off, and the transfer finishes, and Ty and the others get back to the real world, and Daigo supposedly bleeds to death in the laboratory. We do not see Daigo again. We have not seen Maki again. It is assumed that both of them are dead. Unfortunately. I wouldn't have mind getting a little bit more backstory on them. We got a fair amount of backstory in regard to like their Digimon were either sacrificed or became, one of the celestial Digimon. Again, I'll be going over that in a different video. But they are also, this example of if they had kept going, if they had kept their Digimon as long as Ty and the rest of the group did, would their Digimon have vanished too? If they hadn't been sacrificed, or if Tapermon had been able to return. I would assume that given the fact that Daigo's Pokemon Digimon became one of the Celestial Digimon, that it is immune from just like poof vanishing the way that like Tai and Agumon did, or the way that Agumon and Gabumon and Biyomon did. I'm going to assume that that's immune from that because it's this celestial, extremely powerful Digimon that is designed to help keep the digital world in balance. And therefore, even if Daigo dies, yeah, their Digimon probably felt it, but it has this much higher purpose now, and it's kind of immune from being destroyed that way, or from dying or fading out of existence in that way. And with Maki dying, since that bond that she had with Tapirmon had been kind of broken for so long, there's a possibility that Tapirmon either just vanished again, or like as soon as Maki died, like maybe all of its memories did come flooding back, and Tapirmon did remember her, or Tapirmon just vanished in and of itself, or Tapirmon just went on and just continued on down the road and just digivolved further or whatever, or just stayed a Tapirmon for the rest of its time frame as a Digimon. We don't know. That's not something that we've ever seen again. But I would be interested to learn a little bit more. I don't think I ever saw anything else where they talked about any more of their history. But I mean, like, I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more of their history, or a little bit more explanation of the other three children that were with them would have been nice. Just to be able to have a little bit more of like, oh, well, this is what happened, and these ones were here, and these ones were here, and then this happened, and then that happened. This person became this person became this. But as far as I'm aware, we've never seen any of the other three DigiDestined again, even like as adults down the line. I would say that both Maki and Himekawa, or Maki and Daigo, were definitely both at least in their late 20s, if not early 30s, by the time that happened. So that would have been, given the fact of when we see them, I'd say they're probably around the same age that like Tai and his group were when they went to the digital world the first time. So about 10, 12, and I just saw a spider on my floor. The spider is dead now. I don't like spiders. No, I don't like spiders. What was I saying in the video? Oh yeah. It would be interesting to see whatever happened to those other DigiDestined. But with as old as we saw them, I would assume that like Maki and Daigo were probably around the same age that like Tai and his group were when they first went to the digital world. So that would put them at around like probably about 10 to 12 years old. And in that regards, so many years later, they've grown up. That would be, even if they're in like their late to mid to late 20s, that would still put that at like 13, 14, 15 years ago, to all the way up to like 20 to 25 years ago, depending on how old they actually are. Because I don't remember, in my notes, I don't have anything for how old they were, but I might just double check, and if it says anything, I'll see if I can put that in the video for how old they actually were. But as I said, I will do a different video where I talk about the harmonious ones, the celestial Digimon that we see, a little bit more of an explanation as to what they are, what their role plays in this version of the digital world, and then subsequently down the line we see them in Digimon Tamers as well. That's the main area where we're introduced to them, and then they're then brought into this world as like another variation of these same four Digimon. But for the four of them, for the celestial Digimon, just to put them in there, for the harmonious ones, there is the white tiger, there is the red sparrow, there is the blue dragon, and there is the green turtle or the black turtle. I am not super familiar with exactly what that whole setup means. I was introduced to that with Digimon Tamers. I don't know exactly what else it applies to. I know that's a very important thing in regards to like the four cardinal directions in in Japan. Those are extremely important, and in China I believe as well. And Sora's father mentions those four, or the basic concept of them, way back when he explains part of the digital world's interaction with the real world to Yoli way back. And that'll be brought into when I do some explanation as to about like how the digital world came about, which I do have some ideas about that. But that'll be a later date. But this is what we have here for Daigo and Maki. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Tapirmon, you may not remember me yet, or believe that we're partners, but it's true, all the same, and now that I've found you, I'll never lose you again.